Shh. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Stealthy Elf Productions. We're doing a little show called Terra Talks. We're going to be doing this for a little while, where we go through Terra Magia and do a little bit of dev work on it, getting into some final changes, some refinement before we can really say that it's done. I guess, which
Getting
is a
closer.
terrifying thought all in of itself.
Can always be patch notes.
Exactly. But today we're going to be going over essentially just the core mechanics, like the true core mechanics, as in like how to roll. Uh, but first, I just wanted to break down the concepts, the general concept of Terra Magia. It is a modern fantasy game. Uh, so shotguns, swords, spells, cell phones, all that jazz. Also, quick reminder, thanks to our tech genius, my name's Ollie. I fully forgot to introduce myself. But yes, I'm Raul Alejandro Casas Rodriguez. You can call me Ollie. I am Lycus D, Stratus, pretty much anywhere on the internet. And my lovely co-host here.
What are you talking about?
Oh, yeah, probably you.
Oh, I get the lovely status. Hey guys, my name is David. My pronouns are he, him, and I do a lot of stealthy elf stuff. So if you want to see more of me, check us out here. And then I occasionally show up on Tales Archived. Go check out Tales Archived as well for some more great TTRPG content. That's me.
Mhm. All right. So, like I was saying, uh, Jeremiah is a modern fantasy setting. Uh, so I wanted to mix in a little bit of everything from Dungeons and Dragons to Shadowrun was kind of the spectrum that I was feeling. And uh, I'll get into like the lore and other stuff on some other later video, but I wanted the world to feel like they are spots in the world for any type of adventure, any type of setting, and any type of hero or villain. I wanted a world where any monsters could be possible and any adventure is available to you.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and a big part of the game is making sure that as far as character creation goes, which is a thing we'll talk about later again, it is as customizable as any game you'll ever find. Uh, and I think you'll see later on that it really is the case. I've been putting a lot of
Yeah.
effort into that one.
Yeah,
Uh,
I would say so. Very
uh,
customizable.
yeah, I'm excited for when we get to the perks and like breaking some of those down and reworking some
Yeah.
of that with you. That'll be fun.
Oh man. Yeah, that's gonna be some good stuff. The perks are crazy.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Uh, so you, I'm assuming if anyone's watching this, they've played Dungeons and Dragons or a tabletop. Uh, so Terra, in its core, is has a similar concept. It is a D20 system with a but with a D4 added, essentially.
Mhm.
Uh, so for Terra, your D20 is what you roll when you roll any skill, any action. Uh, you get your number. You add that number to your stat block that you're corresponding to, and then if you have any allocated skills, you roll however many d4s you have allocated to that specific skill.
Mhm.
You add all that up, and then you go. My genuine intent with this is just I wanted to limit the variability of like how low the chances of you succeeding are, but I wanted there to still be that like swing where you can roll a 1 or a 20 or whatever and
Yeah.
feel that like slight chance of failure or success no matter what.
Yeah.
Uh, and as far as adding D4s instead of just adding skill numbers, skill points, I just like adding more things to roll. It just feels
Yeah.
good having a bunch of shit in your
Yeah.
hand.
And the other thing too, well, dice, not shit. Um, but the other thing too is that you still also do have the skills too. Like you do still have those modifiers and stuff that you can add. So Terra I think does meet kind of the best of all worlds in a way, right?
Well, thank you. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, I think the one thing that I was cautious about with the the current dice system was that the D4s do add some variance to
Yeah.
the system.
Yeah, and that's really
Uh,
nice.
and at first I wasn't sure what to like do with that, like if I should account for that with stuff. And the way that I ended up accounting for that is that penalties typically are
Mhm.
just flat numbers, right?
Okay.
So like to hit multiple hit attacks, stuff like that, those are all flat numbers. Coverage, that's all flat numbers. Things like that are flat numbers, so you don't have as much variance. You kind of have a true percentage that you understand is being shaken up.
Mhm.
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
I imagine, like, I think one way that helps folks think about it now, it helped me a ton, right? If you played games like Baldur's Gate 3, which still have the dice involved in the game will show you the percentage of like success and stuff like that. And I think Terra does a really good job of kind of giving you an idea of like a range of success, right? Because those D4s add further variance to it, you can end up with, I mean, like the range is wide, right? Depends on how many D4s you're adding, right? But you're adding anywhere between like, let's say you had one D4, it's between 1 and 4. If you had three D4s, it's between 3 to 12, right? Like, and that variance is huge,
Mhm.
right? A difference of 3 to 12
It's
can
massive.
be massive, right? Yeah, exactly. So with the points, with being able to add your attribute points, your that kind of stuff, yeah, it's a big.
Mm. Uh,
Yeah.
and I think that just adds to the weight of specialization, which is something I wanted
Hmm.
to try to get out of this.
Hmm.
Like I tried to keep the stat loadout kind of low. I think after recent talks, we have raised that up a few points for
Yeah.
like level one, but I tried to keep it low initially because I wanted
Yeah.
there to be a focus on like skills
Sure.
to add that impact. Um, I mean, we have brought those up a little bit, but not like a bunch. But admittedly, even 1 point in something is a whole 5% increase. So
Correct.
like
Yeah.
uh,
Well,
three
especially when we
three.
get, yeah, and we're gonna get into it soon, but like the thresholds, right? Like
Mhm.
those fixed thresholds make a major difference, right, between a character at level 1 and then a character at level, I don't know, let's even say like 5, right? The likelihood of success is it grows because you have that fixed thing.
Mhm. Speaking of, let's just move into the thresholds,
Sure.
because that's one thing I was trying to that I was struggling with originally because I am not when it comes to tabletops a real numbers guy.
Mhm.
Like I think I'm not bad at it. I can hold my own with Nigel and his uh D&D
He's always
accounting.
doing, yeah, he's always doing math and auditing like what skills should be, yeah.
Yeah, the spreadsheets that he has for our game alone is wild. But
Yeah, some people love numbers.
they really do. I less so. I think they're interesting. I think they can be fun, but like I that's not me. And when I play most games, I do tend to be the least well versed in any of the rules. Uh which is my bad. Uh
He says as he's creating a game.
why do you think I'm making it so I know the rules for
Yeah,
once?
right. True.
Uh but a part of it is that the I always feel like with uh D&D, I keep bringing up D&D because that's just the most famous, but like any
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
tabletop really.
It's a good frame
I
of
feel
reference for
like
folks.
yeah, I feel like there is this uh difficulty as a player to really understand just how hard something should be for you. Like a
Yes.
lot of times I will go into a thing like I mean it should be hard, but like how hard can it really be? I can roll
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
whatever.
You could roll a 20. You could
Yeah.
critically succeed, in which case, like, and yeah, I think, not to, just to kind of interject real quick, like something like D&D is an interesting example where it doesn't really matter what level you are. if you get a nat 20, you're going to succeed, right? So like a level 1 character could hit a level 20 monster if you just roll, like theoretically, right? Just imagine a crazy world scenario where the monster only gets nat 1s, which are auto crit fails, and then the level 1 character only gets nat 20s. It's an unlikely universe, but
But it's possible.
it's possible. In which case, you have a scenario where a level 1 character could beat a level 20 monster.
Yeah.
Just
And
get good.
just get good. Get that throw right.
Yeah.
Uh but yeah, I felt like that's something I've always felt difficult for me as a player is really understanding the ambiguity of a role. So I wanted
Mhm.
the system to have more like concrete. If I say this is easy, you know it's easy. You know what that
Mhm.
means. You know how it feels.
Mhm.
Uh, and I tried to do that by setting three not stagnant stable points of difficulty
Yeah.
for achievements. Um, we're calling them thresholds. Essentially, a threshold is just the number you have to beat when you add all your stuff together to succeed at whatever you're rolling. Something easy is a 10. So even with no points in anything, you should, on average, be able to succeed that half the time.
Yeah. Maybe even a bit more. Like you said, no points with anything, right? So you're assuming a character with like a 0 in their stats.
Exactly. You're just rolling a flat d20. The average on a flat d20 is mathematically 10.5, I
10.5.
think, technically.
Yeah. Mhm.
So, like, you have a slightly better than half chance of rolling a pass. And that feels like something easy, right? That feels like it should be easy.
Mhm.
Uh, from there, average is just 5 points above that, which is 15 for an average roll. The implication here being that you have a loadout that is like 3 in everything and a couple extra points in like whatever stat you're preferred.
Yeah.
And, not even adding in uh, the skills into that, you would still be at a more or less just about half 50-50 chance of succeeding even with that. A little lower for the ones that you are just a 3 in.
Mhm.
Uh, but with the current stat load, the current distribution numbers we have, it would be, I think, for a completely like average character,
Yeah. Like
four
threes
and
and
three
everything.
skills. I think it's three
Or
and everything, 3 and 3 skills, and four and the 3 skills.
okay.
Uh, I
Yeah.
think is the way that would typically come out.
Yeah. If you
Um,
did an average, yeah.
and then if you pick one of your ancestral feats to be my strength, my power's up, my whatever's up, then that'll
Mhm.
change slightly there. But even then, uh, average roll, you are completely middle of the road.
Mhm.
You're rolling a 10 plus 4, so just a little bit below half chance of succeeding on average roll. And I'm seeing average as like, and maybe the terminology should change. I don't know how
I
you feel
was
about
I
it.
was gonna talk. I was gonna mention that. Yeah, I think maybe some adjustment in terminology because when you think of the word average, right, especially when you're approaching it with dice, we would think, well, an average roll on a d20 system, would be the 10, right?
Mm.
Whereas in our case, that's an easy roll. So yeah, I think adjustment of the terminology might be something to consider. Um, but I think the logic is sound. Um, it is going to come down to when you say average, and I think you were just getting into this. Like, let's get an idea of when you say average, what chance of success are you thinking? Are you thinking like a 50-50% chance for success at a level 1 character?
I'm thinking if with no skills accounted for it, uh, just about 50-50 most of the time. And
Okay.
the assumption here is that you are not min maxing, but that you are swaying in one direction for these skills, you know?
Sure.
So,
Yeah.
like, there'll be 3 skills that you're more likely to succeed and 3 skills you're more likely to fail.
Sure.
Uh, and that was kind of the idea there. Um, I wanted it at level 1 to be maybe a little bit below 50% chance so that you feel a little weak
Yeah.
and
You're
that
level
you
one.
have to
Yeah.
yeah, and you have to rely on your skills. You have to
Mhm.
rely on your niches to get over that 50%.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Which is kind of nice too, especially for like a party that's just starting out. You allow your individual party members to kind of specialize, right? Like if you have, a more strength-based character, right? You're gonna let that dude take care of opening the doors or lifting the things, right? Whereas if you have a more cerebral, brainy character, they're gonna be doing a lot more of the logic rules, that kind of stuff, right?
mhm.
Yeah.
uh, from there, we'll come back to whether we should rename average to something else. Uh, but we have hard, which is just five more above that. So a 15 to 20. To beat a 20, it gets a little, like the name says, it's just a little bit harder. Not
Hmm.
taking into account any skills, that is the percentage chance is substantially lower. You have to
Hmm.
roll like a 15 on the dice, uh, and so on and so forth. Uh, Extreme is the next stage, and that is 25 up. So
Okay.
like extreme is kind of where uh you get to a little bit of wiggle room. That's like end game stuff. That's,
Yeah.
the character's level. Uh Actually, I haven't even really come up with like a maximum level or anything like that. Uh
Yeah.
but characters in the upper echelon. Uh those
Yeah.
would be the kind of roles that they would have to succeed.
Yeah. Well, I'll say, just as going off of the playtest that we've done, right, between like Tales from Terra, Mavet's Heart, that kind of stuff. Um, refer to Mavet's Heart specifically because that's using the current rule system. One of the things I think we're starting to see is like an average roll for level 3 characters isn't hard to make right now. Like we can, so that does let you know or kind of inform you of like the progression, right? Especially like a specialized character. Like, for example, Jin, my character has to make average poise checks to reset his reaction to block people. And it starts off at an average roll of 15, which I can pretty much hit because the character is built to hit that, right? With a endurance of 8, so it's a raw 8 modifier plus 3d4s with an average of, let's say, 2.5 times 3 is 7.5. So let's say 7.5 plus 8 right there. That's 15.5. So I just need to roll my d20, and I'm probably gonna hit it. Yeah, pretty much most of the time, right?
Yeah,
Because the
no,
d20
that's
is adding it. Yeah, 10.5.
yeah, you're almost sure to hit for your first roll. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
with that particular ability, the thing for Shin is that each time you do it, each time you succeed, the threshold
It
gets a
gets
little
harder.
higher next time.
Yeah, it
Uh,
increases. Yep.
which so far, from what I've seen with our playtest, you hit average almost every time,
Yeah.
hard a majority of the time. Extreme is where you start to kind of cap off, where you
Yeah.
can, if you roll everything perfectly. I mean, you
Yeah.
have an 8 in the skill. That is extremely
Yeah.
high,
Yeah.
uh, or in the stat, but like it is still hard to do even at that stage.
So that brings up something for me too. Like as a GM, right? When you start to get into that realm where your characters are sitting at like plus eights and stuff like that, do you even bother to have them roll easy rolls? Like, I mean, like if you were to give Jin like an easy block roll, he can do that in his sleep with a plus 8, and then again 3d4. So again, that's 7.5 modifier, right? I mean, again, we're rolling 15.5 on average, right? So that character is like, do you would you get to the point where your character is so good at something, where as a GM, like an easy roll doesn't even matter anymore, right? Like, does it kind of peter out?
Honestly, I think so.
Yeah,
And maybe this is because me as a player and as a person who enjoys these games am far more likely to want to roll less,
yeah,
which is kind of wild to
yeah.
say.
No, it's true though. Like after a while, like the characters, it kills me when you have certain games where you have like you're asking characters to roll stuff that's obviously going to succeed. Like, I very much believe in dice are there to resolve uncertainty, right? If it's you get to the point where a character, like again, we're just using Jin as an example, who's got a high power, you know, you're it's not certain anymore. Like it's pretty certain this dude's going to succeed, right? So you don't really need the dice at that point, do you?
Exactly. Uh, so yeah, I 100% agree. I think as far as um, you know, tips for running the games, once a character's stat is clearly beyond the realms of easy or whatever check you're doing, you
Hmm.
can just wave it along. Uh, Once the percentage chance of them failing uh, is so low, they're just like, unless you roll a one on everything, you're kind of
Yeah, we're basically looking to see if you crit fail or crit succeed.
exactly.
Yeah.
Um,
Which that I mean, let's finish out with thresholds and stuff. But I do want to ask about like, yeah, crit successes, crit failures,
yeah,
that kind of business, right? Let's get into that in a little bit.
yeah. So, as I mentioned, the extreme threshold does represent 25 plus. So it starts at 25 and goes up, and that's
Hmm.
at the discretion of the DM at that
Hmm.
point. You're playing end game stuff. You are kind of setting that yourself. You're kind of because at that stage, every number matters, you know. So that's
Yeah.
more discretionary.
Yeah.
Uh, the other thing to mention with thresholds is that I wanted to add something that gave variance to uh, the amount of success or failure in anything, and
Hmm.
it's something that I bring into the bring up in the core rules, but really only make use of in like perks and whatnot. Uh, because if it was, I feel like if it was incorporated into everything, it'd be a little complicated. Like I tried to incorporate it originally into uh, uh, contested roles, but I found that that was a little bit sticky. And that is the idea of degrees of success or failure.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah, like crit fail,
Essentially,
failure,
yeah,
like Pathfinder kind of does it. Yeah.
exactly. So
Yeah.
the degrees of success or failure, the idea there is if you're setting an average difficulty and someone rolls a 23,
Hmm.
uh, each point above the point of success, above the threshold, would be a degree of success. Uh,
Each point above the threshold would be a degree of success. So an average roll is 15, and you rolled a 23. So you're talking about like 8 degrees of success higher, right?
exactly.
Okay.
Which doesn't the necessity of that doesn't come up very often, at least not right now.
Hmm.
But there
Hmm.
are things where it can be incorporated, and I've incorporated them into more of the perks and some of the
Sure.
abilities. Like
Oh no! Don't freeze.
there
Okay.
is a there is a uh, oh my god, there is a skill that you can do, which is basically automatic fire on an
Hmm.
automatic weapon, right? And the
Yeah.
idea of that is you lower your to hit, you give yourself a penalty,
Yeah.
um, just to balance it out. And then for every point, every degree of success that
Hmm.
you get an extra damage dice because you are just
Oh.
unloading.
Whoa! 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 Whoa!
So
Whoa!
it's
Whoa!
harder to hit because
Whoa!
it's harder to aim. But if you do hit, you're hitting.
Yeah, you're hitting
And
hard too, because like an extra
exactly,
damage dice. Yeah, so then you can kind of describe it as like not only are you hitting hard, but maybe you're also like hitting accurately, right? To if you wanted to kind of imagine why that would be the case. Yeah,
mhm,
that's okay. That's interesting. Yeah, I think I'd really have to see how that plays out because I do worry something like that can become very meta, right?
yeah,
I'll tell you just a video game example. I'll give you a very current video game example. I'm playing a lot of Expedition 33 right now, right? And in that game, I have one character who I built to have a 50% crit chance, so pretty much half of the hits are critical hits. That's high.
solid.
And the reason I do that is because the character has an ability where they do a 13 hit combo, right? Compared to other characters who are just doing one hit at a time, right? So if you have a character who's doing 13 hits in one thing, 50% of the time those are crits. This person is putting out monstrous damage, right? So
Mhm.
I think one thing I would say with Terra, my game designer instincts is a bit worried about metas forming, right? Like if you have your players like, uh, just to own it, I'll say myself, and just to call a shot, I'll say Nigel. You'll have players who are going to find ways to make busted builds, right? Like
Mhm.
immediately I'm thinking like, oh man, automatic weapons, that's a damage hack, right? So yeah, how would you account for balancing those out? I know you said the to hit takes a penalty, right?
Uh, I don't have the specific number on me right now. I think
Sure.
previously it was a -4 penalty.
Sure.
Um, it was essentially like the penalty for doing multiple attacks.
Yeah.
Um, I might increase it more. I don't know. I have to do some. We have to do some more playtesting. I
Yeah.
might throw it in for the
Yeah.
next character. Who knows?
Yeah. Maybe
Uh,
do like an exponential kind of raise. Yeah. Could
yeah.
be definitely something to consider. And you
And
could
then
even start off with smaller numbers too. Just saying.
yeah. But even then, it could still like stack with
Mm-hmm.
uh with the multiple attack penalties. So if you do it once,
Mm-hmm.
cool. Then your next attack will be not only -4, it'll be -8 because you're doing the
Mm-hmm.
multiple attacks,
Yeah.
which will make it
Harder to
much more
hit.
difficult.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Uh, and
And too, like you said, yeah, actually, that much more difficult means that you're not going to get those degrees of success higher, which is
the whole point.
a big point. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I
Exactly.
guess that kind of evens out. Kind of evens
Uh,
out,
the other
or at
way
least
to
theoretically. Yeah.
yeah, the
Yeah.
other way to balance that would be for it to be like a per weapon basis. Like this weapon costs a bunch of fucking money. It gets a bonus for every degree. This weapon costs a lot less. It gets a bonus every 2 or 3 degrees.
Mm. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I would. I think that's definitely something we got to play test because yeah, yeah, I still worry a little bit about a meta forming when you have like certain builds, you know. And that's something that I think every game designer has to worry about, right? Like players are going to find, just like water, we're going to find the path of least resistance, right? We're going to find what's going to be kind of busted,
Mhm.
right? I mean, you know that with me whenever I make characters, I love to find like, oh, how can I break this? You know?
Oh yeah, 100%. It's been fantastic.
Yeah.
I think so far the way that I've tried to balance it so that that is uh you know held at bay at the very least
Hmm. Hmm.
is not by stopping it, but by yeah you can do that, but then you're only good at this one thing, and if something goes
Hmm.
wrong, you're not going to be useful,
Yeah, it's true.
which has come up a few times with
Hmm.
like your characters and Nigel's characters, where once they're out of their specific uh use case, they're still
Hmm.
viable for a lot of things, but they're no longer, controlling the battlefield.
Yeah, but it almost also too, and this is something we talked about earlier with skills. Um, this would incentivize, you know, party variety, right? I mean,
Mhm.
if it was a solo campaign, you should consider that and be smart about where you put your points, right? Nigel's characters, Suki and Jin, they work really well because you kind of have ultimate offense and ultimate defense, right? So they kind of meld well together. But then you have, if you're playing a solo game, you're gonna really want to be a bit more balanced and pay attention to that. Um, but in a party game, you could totally make like, if you had four min maxers playing the table, right? You can make a pretty scary looking party if everyone is just sticking to their roles, kind of thing, right?
That would
But I
be
like that stuff.
truly horrific.
Yeah, I like that stuff though. I think for me that's one of my favorite kind of games. Like you can't have one player who's just the Superman, right? Otherwise, it really kind of invalidates or devalues the rest of the party. So
uh,
that's just my two
yeah,
cents. I like games where you can, yeah, min max high in one thing and then count on the rest of your team to fill in the gaps where your character's just not built to deal with.
for sure. But anyways, so we got a little sidetracked with the idea with
Yeah.
the explanation, the example of automatic weapons, but
Mhm.
the point of it is an example of degrees of success. So that's not
Mhm.
the only example, obviously, but
Mhm.
the purpose of degrees of success is to allow that granular aspect of certain things, like
Mhm.
whether it's how much effect you have on a spell or an ability. Like I'm pretty sure one of the healing abilities is you heal based on degrees of success.
Okay.
It's how much you heal someone.
Mhm.
Uh,
Do degrees of success typically, because you're kind of calculating each individual, you know, number above the threshold, do these apply as multipliers or additions?
Additions typically.
Additions typically, okay. Might be skill dependent, but yeah, because yeah, if it was a multiplier, like, and you had like a plus, you beat something by 8 and you're multiplying by 8,
It'd be
that gets
wild.
wild. Yeah.
Like it would have to be an extreme like I would have to think of a pretty wild ability for that. I'm not gonna rule
Mhm.
it out because it's possible. It could be
Yeah,
something
could be
interesting,
fun. Yeah.
but like yeah, typically it's addition.
Okay.
I'm not that
Okay.
insane.
Yeah. But the other thing too, do you also do degrees of failure?
Yes. Uh,
That's the balance. Okay, good. I like that.
uh, those don't come up as often, and
Hmm.
I've been trying to work them into more perks. But I do
Hmm.
think they'd be fun to work around,
Hmm.
and I think they should be incorporated more. Um, that's something I need to work on specifically.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but,
Yeah.
but, but,
As long as it works in both directions, then game is pretty balanced, right?
yeah, I like to think so.
Yeah.
Uh, so now, that was the degrees of success and failure,
Hmm.
coming off of thresholds, uh, and the last little bit inside of like the true core mechanics of like just the rolling, is advantage and disadvantage.
Hmm.
So the way that I added in advantage and disadvantage is I made them just d4s. That way that they almost counteract skills and training. So
Hmm.
like getting an
Hang on,
advantage is like
just a quick timeout. The page that you're on is still the degrees of successes. If you want to, I think that the advantage disadvantage page is a little lower.
oh, jeez.
There you go.
Thank you.
I got you.
Okay. So yeah, uh with uh uh with a skill and with an advantage, they're both d4s. So the idea is that if you have an advantage in a situation, it's as if you're
Hmm.
slightly more trained in that situation.
Okay.
Uh and the reason I wanted to make them d4s as well is that it's a little easier to do math if you're just going, here's a d4 that I get to add usually, but I have a disadvantage, so I have to take it away. Now I just don't add it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, and I just
Yep.
thought that would be
Mhm.
mechanically a lot easier to throw in there than just like re-rolling everything and counting everything again, because it's already a very counting heavy heavy
It's a good
formula
bit
that
of
I have
math.
set up. And
Good bit of math.
yep, usually none of it is too many digits, but we've seen how that goes even for us.
Yeah. Yeah.
uh
Stay in school, kids. Learn to do your dice math.
yeah, keep practicing your math.
Hmm.
uh
Hey, Tara, you got that big math exam coming up? Listen,
mhm.
I'm
uh
studying, Mom. I'm playing Terra.
but another part of it is also that uh I wanted to be able to stack advantages. I wanted to be
Yeah.
able to create a perfect storm sort of situation, or a perfect like opposite of like where the party has set up a genuine trap. Like, hey,
Hmm.
we have this here, and when that happens, this happens, this happens. We
Hmm.
are
Hmm.
set. It's like, all right,
Hmm.
that's three advantages because you guys are ready. Uh and same with disadvantage. Like, oh,
Yeah.
cool, cool, cool. You guys forgot this. You're in a place with this issue. You're having this problem. Yeah, you're
Hmm.
fucked. There's no
Yeah.
chance.
Do you have a maximum number of advantage dice? Like I know on the character sheets, it's typically like the characters have like threes, right? Like three advantage dice that they get. But theoretically, like if you had, the other party members contributing somehow, maybe like buff spells, right? Could you get up to like 4 advantage dice or, beyond? Or even, multiple disadvantage dice too. Like what is there a limit on the D4s?
I don't have one set,
Mhm.
um, just because part of me thinks that like if you were able to genuinely put together that that string of things,
Mhm.
I feel you should be able to get that if you were able to
Mhm.
really put that together.
Yeah.
Maybe I should limit that because like you said, if you have a party of 4 players and they know what they're doing, they could
Yeah.
probably do some gnarly stuff, and
Yeah.
maybe that needs to be balanced a little bit. But uh, currently, I don't have that limit. If I did, I'd probably set it to 3, just
Okay.
because it's a simple number for me, and it's been calculated into the game uh, as like up to 12 being the maximum in terms of
Sure.
like numbers that it adds up. Uh, words 5%. So it would add like a 50% chance increase
On
for
like an extreme success or extreme threshold.
exactly, and
Yeah.
like that's huge.
Yeah. Yeah. 50% is a pretty significant number.
Exactly.
Um,
Still
the
doesn't
and you know what you
guarantee,
yeah
but it does.
yeah it helps, right? It gives you an advantage. Um,
Exactly.
the other thing you could think about too is, I mean, that's also a place where you can even put in something like a perk or an archetype or something like, oh, you get a fourth advantage dice, or as like a specific thing. Like you can turn your game mechanics into you know abilities. You know, the thing I do wonder about though is like, let's take Jin for example. Again, we'll just use the characters that we know. Jin has 3 advantage dice in block, right? Does that mean that it is essentially like, what would the incentive be then for my teammates to help me try to block something?
No,
Is there one? Because I'm already maxed out.
you have 3 skill dice, not advantage dice.
Not advantage dice. Okay, so you could have, so there's a distinction there. Okay, skill dice and advantage dice. Got it.
So when you get a disadvantage, it would be easy enough to just remove skill dice
Remove a
because those are
D4. Yeah.
basically
Yeah.
balance out. But they are different in
Hmm.
that if you have a maximum of 3, you can still get another 3 advantages if you guys
Okay.
get absolutely cracked.
Okay.
Uh, which most of the time isn't honestly going to be that helpful, even because it's like,
Yeah.
oh, if you need that many, you're doing something stupid, and good luck to you. Uh,
Yeah. You're going to want those terror tokens instead. And that'll be another session, but that'll be another talk.
exactly.
But
At that
there's a
point, you're
thing.
doing something where the extreme numbers come out, uh,
Mhm.
and I feel like
Yeah,
that's
because
valid.
you just imagine, again, like a maximum, assume like the craziest rule, right? 3 maxed out skill dice, so there's 12. And then 3 maxed out advantage dice, there's another 12. There's 24, right? You just need to roll, I mean, well, a 1 would get you an extreme,
Yeah,
right?
uh,
And that's not
and
even
that's where
counting,
the
yeah, that's not even counting like your attribute
your stats.
modifiers. Yeah,
Yep.
your stat modifiers, like, yeah, that's good.
So like it could get to a wild number, and I feel like as long as we limit that to a maximum of 6 with advantages and skills, uh,
Hmm.
and that could still, like you said, get pretty insane, but it would be hard to implement
Yeah,
because you have to actually do X amount of actions per turn to make that happen. You
sure.
would have to commit resources to it, whether it's perks and abilities or just I'm aiding in some form or
Yeah,
whatever. So it's not like it's just everyone has that many per
yeah,
turn every time.
yeah. But you could always, what I like too, though, is that it doesn't have something like, like in Pathfinder, you have like the 3 types of bonus, right? Item status and circumstance. You don't have that sort of limitation here, right? Like,
No.
you don't have any, like, you can still, even it, would you allow someone to benefit from like the same ability? Like, let's just say, you know, character A is going to be doing a big block, right? And then character B provides, uses a spell, help block, right? Which gives an advantage dice. And then character C comes along and also says, well, can I also put a, help block spell on this? I also have that spell. Would you allow the one character to benefit from both allies, even though it's essentially the same bonus, maybe even the same spell?
I think personally, I'm of the mindset that that should be fine because it's balanced out by the players having to spend the spell points or
Hmm.
the mana for it, they're having to spend the actual actions for it,
Hmm.
uh, and while maybe that block is super important, maybe
Hmm.
maybe they should also be spending those actions on something like, I don't know, healing, damaging, doing something.
Sure.
Uh, so I feel like generally managing action economy would keep that naturally limited
Yeah.
in some way.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
It's tricky though, because
it
I don't
is
know.
like I was
TTRPG
unsure.
circumstances are weird as hell.
Yeah, I mean I was a little hesitant when you brought it up, but like generally I want to say that if you take an action, its consequences will occur. You know, like if you cast a spell on someone, it says they block better, they'll block better.
Sure.
If your whole team does it together, I feel like that should do something. You know, that
Yeah.
should be beneficial.
Yeah.
Because yeah, I also do like generally the image of like a bunch of mages casting one spell together.
Hmm.
It's
Yeah,
just
and you'd want to reward that, right? Like you'd want to make sure that those things, mm, contribute. Like, they need to feel influential.
mhm,
And that's important because yeah, we've run into the situation with in our Pathfinder games where you have a situation. I don't want to use the word circumstance because that has a thing, but you have a situation where multiple characters want to help with something, but well, because the bonuses are the same type of bonus, you can't, right? So
exactly.
then you gotta get either very creative or find something else to do.
Exactly. And I want to avoid that. I want everyone to be able to do and contribute in that sense.
Sure.
Um, but yeah, I think I will add though in the advantage and disadvantage
Hmm.
uh, that they will be limited to a maximum of three. Let's see.
Yeah.
To reward such planning and preparation, the GM should allow uh, them some advantage dice to rolling. The more well prepared, the more advantages they should receive, up to a maximum of. Oop,
Three
I can't
advantage
type.
dice.
Of three.
Hmm.
All right. Uh, also, I'm using a free and open source program called Scribus for all of the creation. It's delightful. If
Thanks,
anyone wants to
Chris.
make their own story or book, it's great for that.
Hmm.
All right. So added that.
Not a sponsor. We're just fans.
Just a fan. Hey, it's free and open source. I didn't pay a penny, and I've gotten my money out of it.
Yeah. Your non pennies that you paid.
Exactly. Uh, support open source, man. All I'm saying.
Yeah, hell yeah. Hell yeah.
Um, what else was it? There was something else I wanted to consider changing. Yes. Just general terminology because it was a point of contention with you before, and
Yeah.
I do understand the importance of that of slightly pedantic, you know, quibbles
Yeah.
with wording because it's not really that pedantic. It means something, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
your thing was that average doesn't seem like average. What about
Yeah.
changing it to like standard?
Standard is good. I like the word standard. Like, yeah, standard roll or standard threshold sounds just fine. And you could even, and you can still keep easy and stuff like that, but you could even do something like simple, simple roll because eventually a task does become simple. Um, if you wanted to adjust terminology, carte blanche. But yeah, I think swapping average for something else that, at least in mathematical terms, yeah, so like you shouldn't call it, median. or anything like that because we don't run into the same issue. You know, they say
Right,
like, oh,
right.
median roll in a d20 and a sequence is, a lot, you know. Um,
Exactly. No, I appreciate that fix, and uh, we'll make it. Now, the only problem
or
with
par.
this is
I just pulled up a Google thing. Par is a good one.
par.
Yeah,
uh,
par
that
for the
sounds too
course.
golfy.
Hey, norm. This is the norm roll, the norm threshold, the
uh,
normie threshold.
Normie threshold. That makes it seem like any average Joe should be able to succeed, and I don't think that's the case.
Yeah, we
This
don't
is
want that.
this is a standard role for lower level heroes.
Yeah. That's an important thing too. Like the whole point of this game is that, excuse me, these characters are ultimately, heroes. And as you get into deeper levels, where something like a standard role becomes very accomplishable, like a character's modifiers, become, because a character's modifier will hit 15. I'm just thinking, for Jin, who's level 3 right now, what level would I start be looking at like a 13 to 15 in a stat block? In a stat.
I can pull that up real quick.
Yeah.
I think leveling up is around.
Yeah. Because let's be
Uh,
real. I mean, by level 3, easy rolls become a non-issue, essentially. By what level do standard rolls start to become a non-issue?
right. So, you get one stat basically every other level,
Okay.
which that might change. We're still working on that. So it
Yeah.
would be a minute as far as like pure stat loadout.
Sure.
Uh, but like by uh, if you're looking to add 4 more points into Jin's power,
Hmm.
he's at 8 right now.
Yeah.
So he's at level 3. Uh, so level 6, level 8, level 10, and level 12. So that's 4 points there. Uh, and you would be able to get him up to 12 on his power, which is
Hmm.
over 50%
Of the
automatically.
required, yeah, for an
Yeah.
average roll, for a standard roll. Yeah.
hmm Uh,
Yeah.
so like it's slow growth, but it's impactful. Every
Hmm.
single stat point is a 5%.
Man, I'm just looking at all my other stats that are at zeros and one. Like, yeah, all he's gonna be able to do is block shit.
That's yeah, that's the way it's set. Like that was the
Yeah.
only way I could think to balance was to just like everyone everyone kind of min maxes,
Yeah.
obviously, because like you have
Yeah.
to make your spread
You want
your
your character to be
specialized.
good at stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. But you and and Nigel are truly min maxed.
Oh yeah.
Singular point
I'll
stuff.
take. I took zeros in influence and logic.
Which is why you never beat a single like mental fortitude or
Nope. Yep. That's the thing. Like, yeah, but that again, that's the balance, right? Like,
Mhm.
you want to have certain. I think we see this a lot in TTRPGs in general, where after a certain threshold, certain numbers just stop mattering. For me, again, D&D is a good frame of reference for folks, but I think D&D is the chief offender in this for me, where it's like AC stops mattering after a while, which is wild, right? Like once you hit level 13 or something, and now you have a modifier of, I don't know, let's say 15 or more in a stat. Um, the maximum AC I think I've ever seen was like in the 30s. That's half the roll, right? You're looking at like a 50% shot on this already. Um, and then with advantage dice, you're doubling your chance. Like so AC stops mattering after a certain threshold in the game, which kind of that's rough, you know.
yeah.
Um,
Especially since like I feel like that kind of nullifies a lot of uh uh like early level like loadouts. for
Yeah.
your characters, where it's like
Yeah.
made your character to have busted AC at level 2, which
Yeah.
is fun.
Yeah. It's fun.
But after level 10, it's like, oh, cool. I'm now average compared to everybody else, even though I
Yeah.
dedicated this whole section of my character.
Correct. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you'll get to the point where it's like, well, I spent all these levels doing this only to just the game math just, stops becoming an issue for creatures who are trying to hit me.
Mm.
Um, which is why I do really also like the skill dice in this, where you get to add that kind of floating addition if you're built for it, right? Um, so because you always have those degrees of uncertainty, um, it keeps it relevant throughout the game. And there's two ways to approach it. You can either do what we're doing here in Terra, where it's adding those extra dice to account for that, or which makes it more uncertain, which makes it more of a dice game, or you could do it the way again 2e, where it's just math. It just becomes orders of 5s and 10s, and you just let the math do its thing. Like a d20 continues to just determine after a while crit success or crit fail. But like I'll say in Unearthed Inheritance, for example, Finn, who's a fighter, I routinely am throwing trash mobs at him, and Finn can hit these things in his sleep. Right? He just has to look at them and they're dead. And when we have Alec roll the dice, we're basically just determining whether it's a crit success or a crit fail. Right? But that also tracks with what you would see in something like a video game, right? When you get to a certain level, certain areas are just easy, right? You're gonna go. If you are a level 10 character in a level 1 area, you should be stomping on everything, right? You should be soloing everything in the area. And Terra has that. You can see it with the numbers. But then with the skill dice, adding the d4s, it still creates a little bit of uncertainty. So it still gives you that. It still scratches that like gambling addiction itch that we all seem to have.
I mean, that's fair. I think also due to the way that the numbers just kind of work out,
Mhm.
uh, even when you're those crazy high levels, like uh, I threw in a character to just kind of beat up Nigel in the last session because I kind of wanted to,
Sure.
um,
Can't blame
and
you. He's very beat upable.
and like that thing is a crazy high level.
Yeah.
All of his primary stats that he uses, which are just physicals, are basically 10 across the board.
Mhm.
But he has 2 in everything else. You
Holy crap,
could
that dude must be super high level.
yeah. Again, that was from a previous iteration, and I didn't rework him because I
Yeah.
didn't feel like it.
Well,
But
the other thing too is a monster, right? Like I don't know. We will have to get to monster creation at some point, but I feel like monsters shouldn't necessarily be constricted to the same rules that players are.
right, uh, but like even him, which would be a crazy, like absurdly high level, you can still get him with like mental effects. You can still get him with things that would restrict his movement, uh, with like a mental fortitude, or something like that, because
Yeah.
he's just not spec'd for it because everything went into the other things, and
Yes.
because of how limited the incoming stat bonuses are, and you having to choose where to throw those.
Hmm.
I feel like even at high levels, there is something that you can find in your boss that you're fighting to be like, if we target this aspect of him, we can still do something.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
so yeah, I feel pretty
Yeah. You
good about
definitely want
that.
that. Yeah. You definitely want it to have like what I consider like a video game weakness.
Yeah,
Something exploitable.
yeah, a glowing red spot on their chest or something.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like, oh, aim for that. Yeah, you
Exactly.
definitely want that. Hmm.
Uh, all right. Well, I think this was very beneficial, and
Yeah.
definitely ironed out a couple of things, made a couple changes. Uh, we'll have to go through and change average to standard in like 100 different pages, but that's okay.
You just control F.
Uh, no, because the way that I built this so that I could manipulate like the layout,
The
I
paragraphs
made
and
each text box a separate text box.
yikers.
So no, because the way I did it was kind of dumb, but I didn't know how to use the app originally. I've learned since, but like it's too late.
Hey, not a sponsor. We still love you.
uh, but yeah, it'll be fun to fix.
It'll be
uh,
fun to fix. Okay, good.
but yeah,
Sorry for that. Look and see, there's two big ones right there in the block. Go up.
mhm.
There, right
Yep.
there. There's two right there.
Yeah, let's do it. Right. Oh god,
Yep.
I'll fix that later.
Yeah.
uh, Yar. Um, but yeah, along with that, setting an actual limit to the number of to the degrees of to the number of advantage or disadvantage dice, I think is
Hmm.
smart because yeah, it will be will be broken immediately.
Yeah. Yeah. You'll
Um,
people will bust that.
yeah, and obviously degrees of success and failure. That is kind of just a general concept. How we implement it in the future is whether that will be abused or not.
Yeah. That we'll have to see.
Mhm.
And I think that's one thing you could. I don't know if it could be one of those things that becomes sort of like mid-tier gameplay where those become more relevant, right? So we'll see.
Uh, I think I may have written this into. I'm not sure. Da-da-da. Yeah. Uh, where you hit with no degrees of success, but you hit exactly on the money. I
Yeah.
put in like you don't have to follow this rule. This is just an optional thing, but to like add some variance to it, where if you hit exactly on the number, uh, match the threshold exactly, an attack deals only half damage or something because it's a
Oh
glancing
yeah.
blow.
Sure.
Uh,
Sure. That's interesting.
so So there are ways to like
I do remember that.
incorporate degrees of success to add more of a hardcore sense to your game if you want. I just wanted that to be mechanically represented.
Yeah. It's a good idea.
All right. I think that's all we have for like the true core mechanics. We're gonna get into the resting and how to heal your characters and crafting, which is a whole thing. In the next section, in the next sit and chat, uh, the next Terra
Terra
Talk.
Talks. That's the name. Yeah, there you
That's
go.
the one. We've done this before. We're professionals. Uh, but thank you for watching and listening. I hope you have a time to go check out Terra. You can go to www. That's so many W's. Dot terraarchives.net and everything. The whole game is free. You can look into it, enjoy it in any way you want. The PDFs are all available there, old and new. While we're still, changing things, we want to make sure that everything's still there. Um, and
You
yeah,
call that open source?
I would call that open. Yeah, I believe the licensing that I use is also open. It is the oh, what's the game license that came out with the Orc license?
Yeah, ORC. Yeah.
Yep, I incorporated that into the game. So if you do want to,
Oh, yeah.
make things for Terra, there is a method by which to do so.
There you
Uh,
go. There you go.
so thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the game. I hope you played the game. And if you have any thoughts, questions, concerns, or if you just want to yell at me about how bad I did math, uh, please do so on Blue Sky at Lycus D Stratus.
Yee. Yeah.
All right.
And guys, my name is David. I've been chatting, and before we head off, I just want to say, Stealthy Elf Productions, we're still a baby channel, and we are one follower away from our next goal. We're at 159 out of 160. Come on, help us out. It's not even a sub. Just give us the follow, right? I mean, come on. What are you doing?
So close.
Right? We're so close. All right. Yeah, that's all I wanted to say.
All right. Bye, guys.
See you guys. Have a great weekend. Or we'll see you tomorrow for Sansi.
Yeah.
Sansi Saga tomorrow. Bye bye.